Hello, everybody, and welcome to another installment of my new player guides, where we look at a hero, we look at the 15 to 17 cards in their kit, and then to look at an example deck where we go, hey, if you like this hero, here is what you could do with the core set, the hero, and up to 3 other packs, just to have like a nice next steps. Along with then finishing off by looking at the Obligation and Nemesis kit to understand here are all the dangers that the encounter deck could throw at you. And this week we're coming full circle because Jubilee, Jubilation Lee, was the first hero that I did an unboxing for, and that was almost a year ago. And I had the full intention of getting back to her at some point, and it just did not happen. And here we are almost a year later. But I figured I wanted to fill in all this stuff. So for the next few weeks, we're going to be doing Jubilee, Nightcrawler, Magneto, and hey, why not Nick Fury and Maria Hill I guess in about the next month and a half. But yeah, let's not even skip any more beats. We are here to talk about Jubilee, Jubilation Lee, and let's get into it. So she is a 3 recovery alter ego with the mutant trait and the Mall Rat ability of search your deck for the shopping spree side scheme and put it into play, limit once per phase. She has 6 hand size and 9 hit points. And there's not a lot to really say about the alter ego, but let's get into the hero, and then we can talk about the entire package altogether. So Jubilee is a 1 thwart, 1 attack, 2 defense hero with the X-Men trait and the Like Totally response ability, which is exhaust Jubilee to generate a wild resource. She has 5 hand size and 9 hit points. And overall, I would say that I think it's very similar to Ms. Marvel. It should be apparent that maybe besides the defense, because 2 defense is at least something. At 1 defense, it's like you could defend if it's an emergency, but it almost feels like, why bother? Why wouldn't you just put cards into your deck if you really care about defending that much? A lot of Jubilee in terms of during the turn comes down to that resource ability. She cares an awful lot about the different resources you're using. That wild resource kind of helps you to hit as many of the, I guess in Magic we would describe it as like the kickers as possible. These different requirements is kind of maybe the verbiage we would use in Marvel Champions. But so yeah, overall I would say that she is just a character where you're going to be basically using her as a resource thing. And then to look at her alter ego side, I think one of the important things here is, one, let's just look at Shopping Spree real quick. We'll get into the full picture of what this card is a little bit later, but it is a player side scheme, comes in with 2 threat, and it does not have victory, so it will go to your discard pile. Threat cannot be removed from heroes and allies. That's important to know because basically this is a player side scheme you're going to be addressing with mainly alter egos. There are other ways to get around it. I'm kind of drawing a blank at the moment, but we'll also get into that in a second. But basically, it allows you to go grab item cards. And as I've been doing these new player guides, I've been kind of keeping an eye on what kind of item cards are out there. And there are more of them than I was expecting. But the long and short of the alter ego is that you will be able to get Shopping Spree, but only out of the deck. That is important to know. And this is kind of committing you because in 1 or 2 players, this is going to be the only player side scheme you can have in play. In 3 to 4 players, it's going to be half of the side schemes you can have in play at one time. So you're really committing to putting this out and taking off the threat off of it. And like I said, we'll get into it in a second. I do think this is a card that is due its own time. But in terms of just like what Jubilation Lee is doing, it is kind of limited. She doesn't have a lot going on, and I think I remember saying that during the unboxing as well. Like in terms of like just her alter ego, her hero side, she's doing something. They're not blank. They're not effectively blank cards. It's just one side is getting you a player side scheme, the other is being a resource generator. And having now played with her and having now understanding her a little bit better, I think that being able to create a wild resource is important because, well, we'll get into it. Why don't we let's stop beating around the bush. Let's get into her attack and thwart events to understand why generating these resources is relevant. And real quick, before we get into the rest of the cards, as always, I like to shout out members of the community, especially for these new player guides, where I'm trying to help illuminate members of the community that new players may not have heard about yet. So if you are enjoying this card discussion, go listen to The Winning Hand. If you enjoy the Nemesis kits, you will probably enjoy listening to Critical Encounters, where they talk about villains, their heroes of the game. And then if you're just looking for other content creators that have gameplay or talk about discussions in terms of the game, go watch Rayplay's Games, Solo Marvel Champion, MC Deck Discussions, Charred Gambit, and The Daring Lime for a wealth of content. Because a rising tide raises all ships, and I want to help as many people get as much attention as I can, because I'm the worst self-promoter ever. So we've got 3 copies of Firecracker, a 2-cost event attack superpower, hero action attack, deal 4 damage to an enemy. If you paid for this card using 2 different resource types, stun that enemy. Oops, I'll put that up just a little bit. Okay, so the important thing here is just that she has a relatively meek attack event. 2 for 4, not horrible, but you really are kind of looking to hit that kicker. I think what's also important to realize here is that each one of these comes with a different resource type at the bottom. And we're going to see that an awful lot throughout all of her cards. Her entire kit is built around the idea of trying to have this diversity, whether you have wild resources or just every event is unique in itself. Like, this is the Marvel CDB breaker, because every one of these cards is technically unique. It has a specific energy resource, or has a specific resource on the bottom, and no two share the same. All that to say, 4 damage and potentially stunning an enemy is pretty good. That package in itself, if you can hit that every time, it's pretty good. It's like looking at Dropkick. If you can use Dropkick to draw a card and stun an enemy, cool. If not, then Dropkick is kind of overcosted. This, I'm pretty happy with it. The times I've played with it, even if I didn't hit it and stun an enemy, sometimes stunning the enemy doesn't do anything because you're finishing off a minion that only has 3 health anyway. Or you're hitting the villain, but you're multiplayer, so the stun sort of only blanks out like half or a third of the villain phase, which can be relevant, but at the same time, the 4 damage is kind of what you're coming in with. And for the most part, if this cost 1.5 resources, the 4 damage would feel a lot better. But overall, it's a card that I definitely like. I haven't been disappointed by it, but it has much more stronger alternatives that you can just get out of aspect cards. And frankly, that's why you play aspects, is you're looking for a boost in some part of the Escher stairwell. Then we've got 3 copies of Flash of Light, which is a 2-cost event. Superpower Thwart. So actually, Superpower is important because you can play Def Focus. Superpower is not great in Jubilee because Def Focus is reducing the amount of resources you can spend, which gets in the way of the fact that she has these unofficial requirements. But 2-cost events, Superpower, hero action, Thwart, remove 3 threat from a scheme. If you paid for this card using 2 different resource types, confuse an enemy. I will say that the confuse here is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Whereas Firecracker, stunning an enemy is nice. It's really nice. Here, removing threat from a scheme and stunning an enemy, confusing an enemy, feels so much better, feels so much more important. This is one where I feel like I definitely want to try to hit those 2 different resource types. And if you're lucky, Jubilee is already a wild resource, so you just need any other card to pay for it. Well, at that point, it doesn't matter. You could have 2 wilds at that point. But either way, this is one where I will definitely focus on trying to get that confused, because that's going to be a difference maker in what this card is capable of. Removing 3 threat is passable. It's fine. It will help you out when you need it. But being able to confuse the villain, or as we're now learning with the Thunderbolts scenario, being able to confuse the Thunderbolt elite minions is great. Just being able to say no to the villain phase in that way is in my opinion, is so much more impactful than just stunning. And both of those are impactful, but I feel like this is the card that proved to be more impactful for me. Then we've got 3 copies of Plasmoid. Oh, sorry. We got 3 copies of Plasmoid Energy. As you can see, it is a resource with different combinations of resource types. And the important thing here is that because a lot of the things she has are looking for at least a minimum of 2 different resource types being used, these immediately allow you to get access to that. I think there's a couple cards in her kit that cost 3 and that you can hit all 3. This is just going to help you. It's going to help you get there better. It's right in her kit. You can sort of start to weigh how badly do I need the basic double resources, because Jubilee's already got 3 double resources in her deck. And it's not she doesn't necessarily want double genius. She doesn't want double strength resource, because she wants that diversity in resources. So these almost just take the place of the basic resources. Like I said, unless you have a lot of cards that cost 2 or more, and the aspect cards you bring in are not necessarily caring about resource types, and you just need to be able to pay for things. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Jubilee could take on the 6-cost shield vehicles that came with Maria Hill, because she's just got a kit that's already prepared for that. And so if you are in Justice or you're in Protection or what have you, like, she might actually be really well equipped to take those on. But next, let's look at her side scheme. Let's go a little bit more in depth on that, because I never really did talk about that. So we've got Shopping Spree, a 0-cost player side scheme with threat cannot be removed from this scheme by heroes or allies, and an it comes in with 2 threat, and an alter ego action of exhaust your identity, remove 1 threat from here. Any player may trigger this ability, and when defeated, the player who defeated this scheme searches their deck and discard pile for an item card and puts it into play. So this does get around any sort of costs that might be on these items, and heroes have quite a few items, and we're about to get into the upgrades that Jubilee has that are definitely going to be for this. In my experience, this is the kind of card that you give up Jubilee's first and second turn to go grab the items that we'll talk about next. If that's not part of your plan, you may want to go looking for this card. And let me just recheck here. So she puts it into play. So you are committing to this. So if you don't want to deal with this right away, if you have other side schemes, if other players at the table have other side schemes, you don't want to bog up the 1 side scheme slot that this takes up with this, unless the table agrees that this is going to be important. Like, we're going to get this out of the way so that somebody else can do this, so that this player can finish it off and can go grab this item. And I think that one of the things it's a balancing thing. The fact that this doesn't have victory, so you can do it multiple times, and the fact that it only works for the player who defeated it going to get the item, is kind of a double-edged sword there. If every player got it, then this would need victory. If it's in the way that it currently is, it makes sense that it's only the player, because you can do this multiple times over the course of the game. That said, you do need to shuffle back into the deck. This is a card that I have a lot of trouble co-signing, because I can see all the positives, but it does bog up the game so much that it's a really hard sell. I've had really good games with this. I've had games where this was annoying, because you have every intention of just staying in alter ego for the first turn, taking a threat off, and then next turn you're just going to exhaust again, take another threat off, and move on. And that just doesn't happen. Now, that said, at some point, the community figured out that there were other ways to remove threat, and I'm just blanking on it, because it would need to be other effects. Let me just look into that real quick, because I know there were examples and I'm just completely blanking on them. Okay, yes, I now remember. The big innovation was Disguise, because that is a upgrade that comes into play, and it allows you to exhaust your alter ego to remove 2 threat. So that became the way that if you are in Justice or there's a player in Justice, you can take advantage of it. Disguise is already a card that you probably want to be playing, because it allows you to be in alter ego and making meaningful change to the 2 schemes across the board. Gambit and Black Widow already are cards that are already heroes that I imagine probably play it. But that was the one card that definitely came out since Jubilee and was kind of like dog-eared for this is good for Shopping Spree. That said, I'm not going to say that Shopping Spree is the worst card in her kit, but I do think that it does get weighed down by the fact that it's more cumbersome than I think we thought it was at the beginning. So yeah, not my biggest recommendation, but you also kind of can go grab it for free. And if you have something like Mutant Education, you can always get it back from your discard pile if you need to. Shuffle it back into your deck, go find it. But, there are going to be bad cards in every kit. And, we haven't gotten to this yet with Boom Guy and Villain Theory. They may have recorded the episode yet, but it hasn't come out. They may say that this is the worst card in her kit. I'm not sure. Called shot. All right, so now let's get to her items. And we're going to put these together because I do think that they definitely play together really well. So we have Jubilee's coat and Jubilee's sunglasses. They are both 2-cost upgrades. They are items. And the coat grants +1 to Jubilee's thwart and has the hero response of after you play a thwart event, exhaust Jubilee's coat and choose a player. Remove 1 threat from that scheme for each different... Oh, sorry. Why did I say that? And the hero response of after you play a thwart event, exhaust Jubilee's coat and choose a scheme. Remove 1 threat from that scheme for each different resource type used to play that event. Whereas Jubilee's sunglasses give +1 to her attack and have the hero reaction of when you play an attack event, exhaust Jubilee's sunglasses and choose an enemy. Deal 1 damage to that enemy for each different resource type used to pay for that event. I want to talk about these two together because I feel like it's just going to be a lot of same thing, but in the correct context for no matter which one I say, which one I talk about first, which one I would have talked about second. I'm not saying these are the best cards in your kit. These are the kind of cards that you definitely want to go grab. If you have a different side scheme that just allows you to go grab hero or identity specific upgrades, go do that. If you have a way to get Weapon X so that you can basically search for these aggressively in Alter Ego, do that. Once again, not the best cards in her kit, but she's going to make these are going to make other cards, especially events, and they target events. They're going to make your events, whether you are in Justice or you are in Aggression, or whether you are in Protection and you happen to have a multi-traded attack event, thwart event, whatever it might be, these are going to take that and just bump it up. And because of how many different resources she can generally pay for things with, this is a do 2 damage, remove 2 threat, remove 3 threat, deal 3 damage. Like, these are super powerful, but they are completely dependent on what your deck is trying to do. They're completely dependent on what events you have. If you don't have a lot of attack events, sunglasses are not going to be for you, but the coat probably does raise up in its power level. If you are Protection, then these actually might be the weakest place for them. I suppose also Leadership. You're still going to be able to use them. They're just not going to have the same value. But if you're in Aggression, if you are in Justice, you already know which of these two you're going to pick. But they just, over the course of the game, can do so much for you. And if you have played Jubilee and you haven't really aggressively looked for these, I don't know how that happened, but you should definitely try that because these will make a difference. You will have a great time playing. And yeah, I love these cards. Now looking at it, there's a different tie for my favorite card. But let's get into some more cards. So then we've got Wolverine, a 4-cost ally, 1 thwart, 3 attack. That 3 attack comes with 2 consequential damage. It has 4 health and the X-Men trait. Wolverine's attacks gain piercing. That's important. And a response after you change to Alter Ego form, heal 3 damage from Wolverine. I thought I would like this card. And if you have the team up card, I don't remember precisely what it does. Let me just look that up real quick. I feel the team up card was relevant. Unlikely duo. So the team up card is 2-cost event. You need both of them. Confuse an enemy and deal 4 damage to a confused enemy. So yeah, like if you have the team up event, the 2 of them might be better. I would almost say you probably want to do that more if you have both heroes out. But overall, I wanted to like this card. I wanted to believe in it. And in some cases, it's fine. You do tend to go to alter ego. I would say Jubilee wants to be an alter ego every other turn. Like some heroes do not have that cadence. Going to alter ego was like the biggest like level up moment for me when I was learning this game. It was like learning that going to alter ego on a regular basis was a good idea. Don't watch my gameplay, that disproves my point there. But Jubilee is a character where I think you do basically go alter ego to hero, next turn hero to alter ego. And so there is a chance that Wolverine's going to be healing up. But if you ever get off that rhythm, then suddenly Wolverine is just somebody who attacks twice and is gone. And you really want to attack because dealing 6 damage, especially with piercing, is really good. Like, he has a lot of the pieces that make me want to like him. And unfortunately, as we've played with him, the more time I've put in with Jubilee and I've gotten this character out, the more I've gone, it's just not there. And there was a variant of Marvel Champions that I was playing around the time that Deadpool and Wolverine came out, where I was taking signature allies and moving them to different heroes. And I played a couple scenarios where he was the signature ally of Deadpool. There he works great because he go to Wade haphazardly on a regular basis. So Wolverine was just healing up all the time. It's just not there. This is one of those ones similar to Shopping Spree where it looks great and then in practice it just sort of falls apart. And so I would love to say that Wolverine is a character that you're going to make work, and it's entirely possible that there is a way that it does work. It just hasn't worked out for me, and you may find yourself wanting to put in Wolverine because Wolverine's awesome, and then you look back and go, actually that wasn't as fun as I thought it was going to be. Kind of a downer here. All right, next up we have Blinding Flash, a 3-cost event superpower. Hero action, choose X enemies, where X is the number of different resource types used to play this event. And I do think that's important that Wild can be counted by itself. Stun and confuse each of the chosen enemies. So this was on my short list for favorite card, only because it does so much. Being able to stun and confuse multiple enemies, up to 3. I think there's the Strife scenario where things cost more. That definitely hurts. But because Jubilee is her own resource generator, that makes a card like this even better. And it definitely makes her coat and her sunglasses better. It's funny how sometimes you just get a hero that kind of just takes what the villain's trying to do as a setback and turns it into a positive. This is the kind of card that I really like because it can be a great haymaker to really shut down and make it so that your victory is inevitable. But beyond that, like I said, it was on the short list for my favorites, but I think over time I've realized that it's a solid 7 out of 10, but it just doesn't rate as highly as our final card is going to. And that is Grande Finale. Jubilee is the kind of character that makes me want to just do the bombastic stuff, and Grande Finale is that bombastic stuff. It is a 3-cost event, attack superpower, hero action, attack, deal 2 damage to an enemy. For each different resource type you use to pay for this card, choose an enemy and deal 2 damage to it. So if you have aggressive energy and you can bump this up, I'm trying to think if this does. I think we've talked about this with like melee and stuff. I'm pretty sure that does work. I think there was another card that also did that, and then I'm blanking on. Somebody pointed out I think it was for Black Widow. But either way, even at its base, where this is just doing 2, and I suppose you add on the goggles so that suddenly on top of that you're doing another instance. This is the Grande Finale. I'm not always somebody that wants to have these big bombastic cards that do things, but the Grande Finale as a one-of is definitely a card that sticks out in my mind, and I go, this is my favorite card, just because it creates stories. Not every card that's my favorite is one that creates stories, but this one does. Just being able to possibly take out a bunch of stuff, or to just lay down 8 damage somewhere, possibly more than that. The villain, I haven't tried it out yet. This is probably really fun to do on the first turn against the Thunderbolts, because they have a ridiculous life pool, and maybe you, with the help of something like Aggressive Energy, you do just take out an entire Thunderbolt in one turn and be like, okay, now it's time for the Citizen V Smackdown. I can't sing the praises of this much higher because it is completely just my own experiences, but the experiences that I've had with this card have been really fun. It's not always the card you want, but sometimes it's the card that you absolutely want, and it makes the difference, and it closes out the game. And sometimes it just gets you to the next stage. Like, you're like, okay, I'm set up. I'd really love to just move on to the next stage. Let's deal 8 damage to the villain and get this moved on. Actually, now that I say that, this is probably a great card to make that final push against MODOK, because you can push him through to a stage and then get your final Inhuman and then just throw another big haymaker and set it up so that your second player can just do the 1-2 punch to defeat MODOK for good. Like, yeah, this is a story maker card, and it is my favorite card in her kit. But let's go talk about the example deck, and then we'll finish everything up. Here. There we go. Hello, and welcome to the look at an example deck. And I'll even say, I forgot how much this is annoying. Okay. I don't necessarily love having to design a deck for this part of the video, because I would much rather highlight a member of the community. I certainly can deck build, but I almost feel like I want someone else to be able to get a little bit of exposure, say, hey, this is a cool deck. It's a good example of what you can do with a smaller card pool. And this could go into a longer rant, although my temper has kind of been tempered a little bit on this. I honestly think that we use and it's not on here because this is, there's a public version of this deck, but this is the private version. We as a community use the beginner tab on too many decks. And somebody has pointed out, somebody in the comments of a post I put out about an hour or two ago, that beginner tag could mean a lot of things. It doesn't necessarily mean a small card pool. It could also just mean like a beginner version. You're not doing these highly complex combos. That's a valid way of looking at it. It's a way I didn't think about it. But to me, a beginner deck should also maybe include decks that don't have 2 digits worth of packs you need to buy, because that doesn't seem very beginner friendly. Which is why I love the idea of the 4-pack challenge. I already made the recommendation, but go look at MC Deck Discussions. He is the grandfather. The 4-pack challenge is really his brainchild. But here I have built a Jubilee deck, and we're going to go through it real quick just to talk about it and get to this is what I built with the Phoenix, Gambit, Psylocke, and Jubilee packs. Ended up not needing the core set, even though I had the core set as a possible thing to pick on, but I didn't go down that route. So I built this deck with the idea of trying to basically take advantage of the confused status as much as possible to highlight cards like Cypher and Float Like a Butterfly. We will get to all these in good time, but let's just take a quick look at these cards and kind of understand. As I alluded to before, these are all unique in Marvel CDB because they have different resources. So yeah, that's what kind of throws off the proportions of the page when you're trying to look at a Jubilee deck. But with Banshee, he is of course, nothing can be simple here. Yeah, because it's not going to change that. Okay, so Banshee, he is a 4-cost ally with 2 thwart, 2 attack, 3 health, the aerial and X-Men trait, and when in a response of when Banshee thwarts, confuse a minion. So this can be really helpful. Just being able to say, hey, we're going to have this ally who is going to get off perceivably 3 thwarts, remove 6 threat overall, confuse an enemy. It's going to build towards the plan that we're working towards. That's what I wanted to do. Jubilee is already event heavy enough that I definitely wanted to like, obviously we don't have any supports in this deck, and so confuse, and the confuse status became kind of the secondary theme of this deck. Play a lot of events and confuse whenever possible. Then we've got Cypher, aka Douglas Ramsey. He is a 2-cost ally, 1 thwart, 1 attack, and 2 health. X force traded, and when he attacks and damages a confused enemy, you draw a card. So this is just a way to get some additional cards. Obviously, he's fragile. And if he had the X-Men trait, I think I would have tried to sneak in some training just to try to get 1 or 2 extra cards off of him. But even if you're basically dedicating yourself to only attacking confused enemies, you thwart with Banshee, you confuse them, Cypher goes in and smacks them for 1, draws a card. I'm all for that. That's pretty cool. Then we've got Dazzler, who once again feeds into the confused status theme here. She's 2 cost, 3 health, X-Men traded, 2 thwart, 2 attack, and when she enters play, you confuse an enemy. Already, Jubilee is pretty fragile, so we didn't pack this deck with a lot of allies, but I wanted to have enough allies in the deck so that she always had someone to defend for her, and especially Jubilee, who can come in, or sorry, Jubilee, Dazzler can come. They're so similar. They have a very similar suite of powers. Dazzler comes into play. She confuses an enemy. She blocks for you. Maybe she gets off an attack or 2. Don't want to discount that, but just she comes in and just allows a little bit of a buffer because Jubilee can be very fragile. Then we've got Storm, who I picked. I excluded Professor X from this because I just felt that was like too passe, even though who am I to say? But I knew that Jubilee has the ability to pay for bigger cards, and I liked the idea of we're already playing into trying to minimize the amount of threat by confusing. What if we could also basically take the threat, mainly thwart the main scheme, and then move other threat to a different scheme, like maybe our side scheme. Obviously, our side, the shopping spree is maybe not the place to put threat, but at the same time, it's a side scheme that doesn't do anything bad to us. So why not just throw that on there? But I just skipped over what she is. She's a 5 cost ally, 2 thwart, 2 attack, 3 health, aerial X-Men, and you reduce the cost to play and you reduce the cost to play Storm by 1 if your identity has the mutant or X-Men trait, which we do. When Storm thwarts a scheme, move 2 threat from that scheme to another scheme. So yeah, just a nice way to basically do what I think is a pretty ridiculous thing. It's like, yeah, we're going to thwart here for 2. We're also going to move 2 of that threat somewhere else. So the main scheme can just drop drastically, even on the first turn that Storm comes into play. Wolverine, we already talked about. Blinding Light. Concussive Blow is a 3 cost event attack, hero action attack, confuse an enemy, which we already want to do. If you paid using a physical resource, deal 3 damage to that enemy. So we're going to hit that pretty easily. But the most important thing here is that we are, obviously you want to do everything. You want to get that damage off, but confusing is just adding to what we're already trying to do. We will get in a second to maybe the most important card in this archetype for what Jubilee's trying to do. Even though, actually, now let's have to think about it. Whatever. This is still a good card for what we're trying to do. Not the best card you could have in a deck, but for what we're doing, is playing into the theme, and I like it. We've got Mutant Peacekeepers. A 1 cost event, play only if your identity has the X-Men trait, and hero action, thwart, exhaust your hero and any number of X-Men allies. Remove X threat from among schemes in play where X is the total thwart of those characters. So this is just a nice way in a big sweep to not get any consequential damage, but take advantage of Storm. Maybe there's not the amount of scheme, or there's not the side scenes in play to move stuff around. Dazzler has nice thwarting, but is kind of fragile. Oh, we skipped over Husk. I'm sorry. We'll go back and get her in a second. But yeah, this is just a card that I looked at and I said, for the traits that we're in, this works. This is just a nice way to also just get 1 big thwart out of the way. Like I said, without having to worry about consequential damage. Obviously, Jubilee does not have a whole bunch of thwarting, although if we are getting out her jacket, that does change things a little bit. Husk, who I skipped over. So Husk is a 4 cost ally, 2 thwart, 2 attack, with a X-Men traded with 3 health, and an interrupt of when Husk uses a basic power, spend up to 3 resources. If you spent at least 1 energy resource, Husk gets +1 for that power for this use. If you used a mental resource, heal 1 damage from Husk. And if you use a physical resource, ready Husk after this use. She plays in really well. I mean, she came in the Jubilee pack, but she plays really well with Jubilee because you can do whatever you want. You don't have to use any resources. You can use 1 to heal her up. It makes her so that she stays around a lot. And yeah, she's got the high enough stats that something like Mutant Peacekeepers definitely is using Husk is advantageous there. Then moving back down to Stealth Strike, it is a 3-cost event. Attack, hero action, deal 4 damage to an enemy. If that enemy was defeated this way, remove 2 threat from the scheme. So again, just a nice way to defeat a minion and also progress what we're trying to do with the schemes. We're trying to be like, I guess this should be categorized as probably a multiplayer deck. You are just trying to do as much thwarting as possible so that the rest of the team doesn't even need to worry about it. 3 Steps Ahead, a card that I like but has not really been successful outside of Jubilee. 3-cost event, thwart, hero action thwart. For each different resource type you use to pay for this card, choose a scheme and remove 2 threat from a scheme, or remove 2 threat from it. So this is nice because you can just choose 3 different schemes. You can choose 1 scheme and you're doing 6 threat removal. There are better options, like even For Justice is a better card technically, but this just feels thematic. It sometimes you want to go for theme, and that's just kind of what this pick was. Then we've got Generation X, which is a side scheme out of, this was also out of Jubilee. For some reason, I was thinking it wasn't. I don't know why that would be the case, because this is obviously out of Jubilee. It is a 0-cost side scheme with 3 threat per player, and victory 0. Each X-Men character gets +1 thwart while making a basic thwart against this scheme. When defeated, each player may search their deck and discard pile for an identity-specific event and add it to their hand. This is great because she has identity-specific events that we definitely want to take advantage of, and this is a good way to get to it. We've got the X-Men allies. I think everybody besides Cypher, I believe, is X-Men traded, so we're going to easily be able to get rid of this even on our own. If we have other X-Men characters at the table, they're going to be able to thwart this even easier. And yeah, it's another side scheme that pushing threat onto it from Storm. Obviously, that's not the optimal thing to do, but it is something you can do to just put threat somewhere that's not bad for you. We've got Passion for Justice, just a resource that I decided we don't have any of the basic resources, the basic doubles. We do have Passion for Justice. It is a resource. You can have up to 2 in your deck. And when you spend this card to play a thwart event, that event removes an additional threat. So it's like Aggressive Energy, dealing extra damage. This is doing extra thwarting. We're doing a lot of thwarting. And I think that even works for Stealth Strike. Oh, this isn't a thwart event. So yeah. But the other ones are, so that's fine. That's also an attack. So yeah, either way, this is still, it has its uses, and it's not strictly for a Justice event. There are other cards other resources that really care about what kind of aspect you're in. This doesn't care about that. Power for Justice, pretty basic, just create double the amount of resources for a Justice event. If not, then it's creating a wild resource, which is just playing into what Jubilee wants to do. We've got Disguise, which was really what pushed me to want to make this deck. I could have gone with Aggression, I think is another good place to put Jubilee. But here I said, you know what, I want to be able to just take out the player side schemes easily and while we're in Alter Ego. And this is just a nice way to do that, go down, be an Alter Ego, and still make meaningful motion on the game. And then the card that I was the most excited for, the card that really pushed me to want to make this deck and really go heavy on the confusion, is Flow Like a Butterfly, a 2-cost upgrade. Play under any player's control, max 1 per player, and an interrupt of when a character you control attacks a confused enemy, increase the amount of damage that attack deals to that enemy by 1. So this was out of the Psylocke pack, as the notes would say. And yeah, just being able to have Cypher draw a card and deal 2 damage is great. To being able to just have Jubilee always attack for 2 against confused enemies is great. If you're just doing the Firecracker, you're bumping everything up. Like, yeah, this is just a good tentpole card to build around, And I think normally my deck building philosophy would put 2 of these in here, but I just err on the side of 1. And I think that's it. Oh, X-Gene. X-Gene is, well, that came with Jubilee anyway, but it is a basic upgrade that you can only play if you have the mutant trait, max 1 per player, and you can exhaust it to generate a resource for identity-specific event. Again, we have a lot of identity-specific events, so this is just really great with how, event-focused Jubilee is. But yes, that is the deck, whatever, a 4-pack challenge. And yeah, let's get back to talk about the Nemesis kit and the obligation. All right, and we are back to talk about the obligation and the Nemesis kit. So the obligation we have is grounded. Give to the Jubilation Lee player. As an additional cost to change to hero form during your turn, you may spend 2 resources of the same type. You must spend 2 resources of the same type. When revealed, change alter ego form, so you're getting grounded immediately. And then the response of after you play a Jubilee event, remove this card from the game. So importantly, with all of her stuff, her events are all hero actions. I'm almost certain. You don't have any way around it. Yeah, does she even have like an alter ego action card? I don't think she does. Oh, I suppose this. But yeah, for the most part, everything about her cards are hero action cards. So you need to use up 2 of the 6 cards in your hand to then flip over to hero form to then play an event. Luckily, she has a resource generator in herself, so you should be able to do this without kind of like getting hung up on anything. And yeah, I like this card thematically. I don't know that it's ever come down and really messed anything up other than just blanking my turn in terms of events. But if you've already got like a satisfying amount of, allies or just other cards in play that can do something, this either allows you to just kind of play a card out of your hand for free, or sorry, I really lost the plot there for a second. But like, if you have the right tool set up, yes, your entire hand might get wiped out because you're just dedicating resources to do this. But maybe you've got cards in play that will allow you to still kind of contribute that turn, or you've just got a bunch of resource generators out, and they're going to allow you to keep some of your hand so that you can do something. Either way, yeah, this does ground you. It does make the game a little bit harder, but for the most part, I've never had a bad experience with this card. It's just kind of been a hurdle, and that's kind of the way that I want my obligation. Then we have Nanny and her side scheme, Naughty Children. This is wild. Okay, so Nanny is a minion with 2 scheme, 1 attack. She is a mutant, and she has 4 health. Additionally, she is tough. And she has the forced response of, after Nanny attacks you, if you control 1 or more allies, search the encounter deck, discard pile, and set aside area for 1 copy of Lost Child and reveal it. So we'll get into that in just a second. Overall, just in terms of like Nanny herself, obviously the toughness kind of makes it so that her 4 health turns into 5 health at a minimum. Could be 6 or 7 damage that you need to dole out. And, she's just sort of a thing. She's not too bad, I believe. Let me just make sure of this. Yeah, Firecracker just takes her out. So it's not the worst thing in the world. You're going to be fine. Then we have Naughty Children, a side scheme with 2 threat. When revealed, place a threat here for each different resource type on the cards in your hand. Because of the diversity of resource types on her cards, this can very easily come down with 6 threat on it, unfortunately. And it has the Crisis Icon, so you're going to need to deal with it first. This is a little bit more imposing just because her event, Flash of Light, might not necessarily get you there because this can have such a wild variance of threat. But hopefully you have her coat. Her coat's the one that does the threat, right? Or the booster threat. Yeah, okay. Hopefully you have her coat because her coat's going to give you +1 on your thwarting, so you're going to have 2. It's also going to just take a thwart event and make it better. This is not the biggest speed bump. I would say the speed bump you're going to really run into is if you happen to run into some of the next cards, and whether it's put on by Nanny or you just draw it naturally as an encounter card. But this is kind of a soft boil Nemesis kit thus far. Then we have 2 copies of Lost Child. It is a attachment, and it is an armor traded card with the text of treat attached enemy as a regressed minion with a blank text box. Attached minion scheme is equal to their printed thwart, and it does not take consequential damage. When revealed, attach to an ally with the highest cost without Lost Child attached. Attached ally engages its controller, otherwise this card gains surge, and it gives you a -1 on scheming. So losing an ally is rough. Luckily, they might not necessarily thwart themselves or attack you to death because they don't have the consequential damage, but you are going to need to knock them out to get this off, or else they're just going to sit there and repeatedly be a problem. The only issue I've ever run into is one time this landed on Wolverine, and suddenly Wolverine was attacking me every turn for 3, and I needed to take him out. And, oh yeah, his text box is blank. So I wasn't concerned with switching to Alter Ego and healing him back up. That was one of those immediate, like, oh no, what's going to happen? And then I was like, oh, his text box is blank. Never mind. Yeah, this is the card in the Nemesis kit that I'm most worried about. That said, it's still like probably a 4 out of 10 in terms of worried about it. The bigger problem is just losing a really good ally. And the final card for today is Battle Suit. Another attachment, armor traded. Attached to the minion with the fewest remaining hit points. Otherwise, this card gains surge. So this will never land on the villain. Attached minion gets +3 hit points and gains the aerial trait. Aerial trait, not that relevant until we get a card that like basically does additional damage to aerial traded cards. That's kind of just flavor text there. And then it gives +1 attack. So this does make a minion that may have been on its last legs just a little bit more difficult to manage with. That said, in a world with the Thunderbolts, this could make the Thunderbolts even scarier. Just a couple more hit points, more damage. They're already villainous. That is a thing that now we have to concern ourselves with. This has never been that big of an inconvenience. If you had an ally that was, or a minion that was super low on threat, or super low on hit points, yes, this does make it into, now you have to give kind of a generous attack to them. But for the most part, hopefully by the time unless you hit Shadow of the Past super early, this is probably a late game thing that's happening, and it's not that bad. If anything, maybe the two boost icons are going to be the scarier part of this. If you hit Shadow of the Past early enough, then yeah, this is just one more thing to factor in. But yeah, I'm not too concerned. So all that blabbering to say, oops, did I? Oh, I didn't bend up the card. I don't. Oh shoot. Oh man. Oh well, he's normally going to sleeves anyway. It's fine. So that is Jubilation Lee, aka Jubilee. She's kind of a middle of the road hero for me. I definitely see the appeal of her. I've had some really fun games with her, especially when, Grande Finale gets to do its thing. I do think she's an acquired taste. I think that if you like Miss Marvel, you may like her. They don't play exactly the same, but they do sort of have that same thing of you're using your hero to elevate what you're doing instead of being a attacker or thwarter. That said, you play an aspect, you get out her glasses, you get out her coat, you get out one of the upgrades that boosts whatever is the aspect relevant trait, and suddenly she is attacking for 3 or she's thwarting for 3, and that can be also good. Very flexible, but she doesn't rank up highly with me, but we have so many heroes now that even being middle of the road is still like the top 25. It's a little ridiculous, but until next time, when we talk about Nightcrawler, I thank you for your time, and I will see you later.